Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Beckson. This is episode 64. We're cranking them out here. We're trying to get out at least basically kind of 4 to 6 a month here. Sorry, we've been a little bit slow here, guys. It's been a little bit crazy for us, kind of juggling a lot of the clients that we have at the moment. And thank you very much for all of you guys that have listened, that have emailed in. And also, we're helping you guys out as much as we can. So today we're going to be talking with Alex Kikut. He's a forestry engineer and environmental consultant. We've never had a forestry engineer. I had no idea what a forestry engineer was until I recently worked on a project with a client that had trees on a building plantel, just had some small trees, and the client wanted to basically see if they could remove those trees again and kind of reforest some of the area of the property as well. So we found a forestry engineer. He went out to the property, took a look. They weren't endemic to the area. They weren't protected. Actually, in fact, we're going to cut those trees down and actually replace kind of more protected trees in that area. So we're going to be talking to him about many ways that you can deal with trees on your property, which ones you can take down, which ones you can't, and also the environmental aspects of building and developing here in Costa Rica, which we've kind of touched on a little bit before about the Centena kind of D1, D2 permits that you need. Sorry to geek out here, guys. But anyway, remember, if you have any questions for us or future guests, guys, you can email us directly at info@investingcostarica.com. That's investing, ING at the end, investingcostarica.com. And if you want for me to cover any future subjects, just let me know. I'm more than happy to find the people and get them on the podcast and get that information out to you. Let's get straight into it. Good afternoon, Alex. How are you?
Hey, Richard, how are you? Thank you for inviting me.
Not at all. It's an absolute honor to have you on the podcast, Alex. I know you and I bumped into each other while doing some work together on a property down in the Uvita or Hochal area. So I thought it really smart to get you on this podcast because I bet you 99% of people listening to this have no idea what a forestry engineer does, how basically it could impact a project or anything they do here. But we'll get into kind of the details on that a little bit later. But I mean, the past 2 years have been crazy. If I'm correct, you currently live in Catargo. Are you in Catargo?
Yes. Okay. I am in the Central Valley in Costa Rica, in Cartago province.
Awesome. Well, I mean, the past 2 years has been pretty crazy. I mean, in your world of forestry engineering, I mean, what has been happening, if you don't mind me asking, Alex?
Yeah, totally agree with you. This couple of years has been really challenging for all of us. Here in Costa Rica, one of the most affected aspects was the tourism, which is basically our major income source. To answer your question in terms of how that affects forestry in Costa Rica, I would like to be positive on this. I think that with the pandemic and especially the climate change effects, we realized that we need to find smarter ways to manage natural resources such as forest.
Yep.
And that is possible to have products, ecological services, and also economic benefits, wealth in general, without destroying forests.
Yep.
And that becomes, in the recent years in Costa Rica, to have a stronger protection and legislation in forest matters, making a most sustainable wood industry, implementing agroforestry system in farms, upgrading and finding new ways to get services from forests, such as carbon capturing and tourism. Basically, is derivated from sustainable management of forests.
Alex, what is it you actually do? I mean, what typically are people hiring you to do? Because again, a forestry engineer, I had no even idea that one existed until, again, there was this piece of land that I had a client that was potentially looking to buy, and I wanted to really do the due diligence. And, I go down the rabbit hole on due diligence, and that's how I contacted you. And we had you go out and look at the lot and provide a report back saying that, again, that we could cut down the tree, but I mean, what are people typically contracting you to do?
Well, it's pretty funny because that same question, I've been asked that same question since I've been in university. A forestry engineer is basically we manage forest as natural resources. That could be for conservation purposes, or the other extreme of the spectrum for industry products, services, and benefits from forest, right? So, well, I've been in both extremes of the spectrum. I've been involved in industry as a supervisor and manager in a sawmill, making pallets. But also, I've been involved in reforestation, ecological restoration projects, conservation projects in general, that involves educational, environmental education. So again, typically I've been contact to, well, basically cut trees in their property, also for reforestation projects, landscaping. One of the most interesting projects that I've done as a consultant was identify trees and make interactive panels in trials.
Yep.
For tourism purposes.
With like QR codes on the trail, so that you can use QR codes, so you can figure out what the trees are, about the species, you know.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. That project, we developed that project in scientific station in Corcovado.
Yep.
South Pacific.
It's funny that you say that, just because, again, you don't see much of that. And I think that anybody that has trails on their property, you know, typically, you know, I mean, everyone's carrying a cell phone around with them nowadays. I mean, typically, you know, it just says the plant name. But if you could have a QR code on it to really see like a video of its growth, you know, its species, its impact that it has, just because Costa Rica, you know, when you peel back the layers of a rainforest and you really start looking at it, it's really interesting. I mean, you know, everything from insects to the actual plants and trees. You know, I think anyone that's interested in David Attenborough, BBC Wildlife, National Geographic, you know, will clearly understand that. But I mean, I think there's so much more in that. And, you know, I mean, this has definitely opened my eyes to this area of, you know, conservation and business, you know, that I didn't even really know existed, because I knew Costa Rica was very strong on its, you know, its environmental, you know, I suppose environmental studies, and also like its impact that people have. But I think it's important as well for anybody that's building anything here in Costa Rica that potentially wants to reforest, you know, do a reforestation project, to not just plant any trees, but to basically contact you, you know, and see about, I mean, what would be, if someone contracted you to develop, you know, or to do some reforestation stuff, I mean, what kind of process would you go through, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Alex, what process, like say I had a large piece of land, you know, that was pasture land, and I wanted to reforest it, because I think a lot of people investing here in Costa Rica really like the idea of, you know, of conservation and also reforestation. But I mean, how do you go about defining what to plant and where to plant it?
Well, it's a really complex scenario. It depends on the region in Costa Rica, and there's a lot of techniques involved to restore a forest, since just leave the land to grow all by itself, and also species enrichment. So it's very complicated technique, but there's been successful projects that in the past that we have done here.
Okay.
So yes, as a matter of fact, it's that's basically it has a large potential. You know, Costa Rica is known for its tourism. Tourists come here to see the wonderful nature that we have. But the next step is for them to get involved. That's environmental education, for them to interact with nature. And that's why now it's the rise of these ecotouristic places, that it's not only just for to be in there and to enjoy the beaches and the nature, but also to learn about that.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I think that that's huge. I mean, I think educating people, you know, especially when it comes to, you know, conservation here in Costa Rica, you know, I know that there are quite a few actual projects here in Costa Rica where you can actually plant trees and kind of sponsor trees as well, which I think is, you know, is huge. But let's just take a recent case study that we had here, Alex, just for the listeners in here. You know, I had a client that made an offer on a piece of land, which was accepted, but there was a tree in the middle, or there was a couple of trees in the middle of the building plantelle that they wanted, you know, and I tried to persuade them as much as I could to kind of keep the trees there and kind of make them part of the actual property, but they decided that just where it was going to be right where the kitchen was, and they didn't want to do that. I mean, what steps do you go through? And also, what would be the costs, that you guys, I mean, I know the answer to this, but just for listeners, I mean, what are the steps that you go through and the cost to assess if a tree can be removed or not?
All right. Okay. I really to remark this. In Costa Rica, we have a pretty complex legislation in terms of environment and forest. In the case of cutting a tree, it could you can actually follow different procedures on the context and on the specific scenario. So the first thing that you need to do is to hire or to ask a forestry professional. It could be a forestry regent, a forestry engineer, or the authority, or directly to the authorities, the environmental authorities. There's three basic questions that you need to ask first before cutting a tree. Where is that tree located? That means, is it on a land in pasture? Is it that tree located in a primary forest, secondary forest? Is that tree nearby a river, nearby a water spring? Yep. That's one of the questions. The second question is, what species is that tree?
What species is that tree, right?
That's correct. What species is that tree? Is that species under any kind of forbidden list, regional or national in Costa Rica? What number, how many trees are you attempting to cut down? And when you answer those questions, there's a different path to follow or procedures. Let's take the simple one. You hire a forestry engineer. He will go to your property and he will determine that, okay, this tree is planted, okay? It's not from natural regeneration. It's obviously planted. So you can cut them. You don't need any permission from authorities if you're gonna use the wood inside the property.
When you mean inside the property, meaning you'll use it on there, you're not gonna cut it down, take it out and sell it, basically?
Yes, basically, okay. If it's only just one tree, you can cut it down and use it inside the property. You can use it in fences, in your own constructions. Yep. But if you take that wood outside the property, you will need transportation permits.
Okay. Well, let's just try. I mean, how much does it cost for you? Just say someone's got a piece of land that they want you to go and take a look at some trees. I mean, how much do you charge, or how much would someone charge to go out and take a look at that tree and just basically give an analysis of, hey, these are your options?
Approximately, we are regulated by a board.
Okay.
We establish a minimum fees per hour, right?
Okay.
For a visit of one day, usually a forestry region, it will cost $400.
Okay, which I think is smart to get anyway, because again, what you don't want to do is, there are a lot of construction workers here that will be like, yeah, dude, I'll just take down that tree for you. But all it takes is someone to call an eye, because again, I think the thing that people need to understand here is that Costa Rica and the Costa Rican people, and also people that are living here, are very protective over trees and its natural environment and, its forests. So even if they hear a chainsaw sometimes, they will call, the authorities, and someone can come up to your property. And if you don't have a permit to cut that tree, or again, you do kind of have a bit of a study and it's not a protected tree, you could find yourself in big trouble. I mean, what kind of trouble could you get yourself into, if you don't mind me asking, Alex?
Well, it depends. For example, you can actually, there's some fees. You can actually go to Yale. Let me give you, you can go to Yale from 3 months to 3 years.
Wow.
If you burn 1 hectare of forest, if you change the land, I mean, if that at the beginning was forest and you change it for a plantation, that's a crime. If you cut forbidden tree that it's under the forbidden list in Costa Rica, you can also go to jail. If you cut trees without permission, depends on the severity. We have a special tribunal or court, environmental tribunal, that will determine what kind of penalty. If that's a fee, it could be from $800 to thousands of dollars, depending on the severity of the specific case.
Right? Yeah, I mean, I know people that have had fines from MINAI about cutting down trees that they shouldn't have. And again, they also had their building permits, kind of removed as well for that. And they had to go, I mean, it's just a nightmare. I mean, my advice to anyone that's going to cut down a tree on your property, someone will say they'll do it for you, but please just, consult a forestry engineer. It's $400, guys. Just get it done. Make sure that you really identify what it is, the property, what you're doing. And, really the first thing is try and build around it, because I mean, it's a beautiful thing to have potentially on your property as a tree.
Yes. I mean, what I always say to my clients, it's authorities and governments not against development, but we would like to do things in the best sustainable and ecological way. Yeah. And that means that sometimes people just, for ignorance, they make mistakes. Let me give you two basic examples. All rivers and spring waters in Costa Rica are, they belong to the government, even though it's
let's say they belong to the people rather than the government, but they belong to the Republic of Costa Rica, right?
As a matter of fact, in the law, it says that the rivers and the water springs are for the joy for the citizens and visitors of Costa Rica. That's what basically the law says, right? And so you cannot make any kind of construction. You cannot make any kind of disturb on for example, in the rivers, 15 meters on both sides of the rivers.
15 or 50?
15.
Okay.
In spring waters is 100 meters around that spring water.
Yep.
And the beaches, for example, in Costa Rica are all, they belong to the citizens as well.
Yep. Which is, I think, a beautiful thing, because there are very few countries in this world where, again, its natural resources, meaning its forests, its beaches, its rivers, its springs, belong to the people.
Yeah, exactly. If you construct inside those limits by mistake or ignorance, the government will will ask you to close, to demolish that construction, and actually stop the whole project. I remember a client that he was actually attempting to do the right thing. He was cutting a pine tree.
Yep, which is not endemic to Costa Rica, right? They're not.
Correct. But he was attempting just to, and that pine tree was located inside the river protected area.
Okay.
Right. Even though it was not endemic, not native, it was inside the protected area. And that's basically a crime. So we negotiate with the environmental tribunal to make a compensation and do a little reforestation, basically a ecological enrichment on that area.
That's beautiful. So, well, that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad that there aren't many institutions in Costa Rica that do that you're able to negotiate with. So it's nice that, again, the environmental bodies are open to some form of reforestation. And I mean, especially when, again, it's, I mean, there is a saying in Costa Rica, it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission here. So, even though that exists sometimes, it's nice to see that they were actually, somewhat, flexible on that. But, well, let's jump into just a kind of switching gears here a little bit. I mean, Alex, where do you like to go in Costa Rica? That's kind of a little bit more off the beaten track. I mean, where are your favorite places to go?
That must be Corcovado National Park. That's on the South Pacific in Costa Rica.
One of the most biodiverse areas on the planet, right?
Correct. It's just amazing. You can find a huge diversity. You can find a lot of species of fauna and flora. It's just amazing. Right now, it's orcs season. So if you go to the peninsula, you can see the
killer whales. Yeah, I saw a picture of that the other day. It was pretty amazing. I didn't even realize. I knew that humpback whales and other whales come through Costa Rica, but I didn't realize the orcas came through Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So, I mean, you like the Osa Peninsula area, which, I mean, for anybody that's listening here is in the Southern Pacific area. It's kind of like the little boot that kind of sticks out the bottom there. It's one of the most biodiverse areas in the planet. It has the Corcovado National Park. You know, I mean, that's where you'll find, you know, BBC Wildlife, National Geographic. I mean, they're always constantly down there, just an abundance of wildlife. So, Alex, if you inherited $500,000 and had to invest in a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you do with it and why?
Well, first of all, I would be extremely happy, you know.
Of course. I think we all would be, right?
I think I will be invest nearby the Corcovado zone or the South Pacific. I think that right now it's increasing. There's a lot, the lodges and tourism in Costa Rica, the tourism projects, ecotourism projects, actually. There's a lot of expats from the States, from Europe, that they're developing a lot of lodges over there. I have a strong feeling of community development, even though it's my own business. I always like these kind of projects that provides this business networking with community.
I agree.
And that are sustainable, environmental sustainable and financial sustainable. So I would like, I don't know, that kind of touristic place that you can go look around the beauties of Costa Rica, but also have production models like agriculture, good practices of agriculture, more educational touristic projects. You know?
Wow. I mean, that's an amazing idea, Alex. I mean, it really is. I mean, I wish there was more of that in Costa Rica. And I think that once people start to peel the layers back of Costa Rica, they'll understand that there is a lot of that educational, you know, sustainable part of tourism here in Costa Rica. I mean, it's really, it's you know, its backbone. So, well, Alex, this has been an amazing podcast. I mean, I think that a few people are going to be listening in on this and just like being like, wow, I mean, you know, I'm sure that they'd want discussions with you about going further down the rabbit hole on some of this. And I'm going to put all your contact details in the description down below. So anyone that wants to reach out with you can do. But I wanted to just say thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us here on the podcast. And I'm sure we'll get you on again in the future.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I will be more than welcome to be here and to answer any questions and serve you. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Alex, you have a great day and we'll speak to you soon.
Great. Have a nice day as well.
Hey guys, another great podcast there, this time with Alex. You know, I think a bit of a different turn that we've had on this podcast. Sometimes I like to throw us a bit of a curveball. Again, as I mentioned there, I had no idea what a forestry engineer was. I do now. You know, we were just talking kind of a little bit offline, Alex and I there, about doing another podcast on carbon offsetting here, and you know, kind of what you can do here in Costa Rica to offset some of that carbon. So we'll cover that. Remember, guys, if you have any questions if you have any questions for me or want help, I'm actually helping quite a lot of people reaching out from the podcast looking for property here, not sure where to invest. So just kind of guiding them and giving them some input on that based on my experience, having worked in the travel industry for 17 years. You know, our business sold millions and millions, you know, well, actually tens and tens of millions of dollars in vacations here. And vacation rentals, hotels. So, you know, have a bit of a unique perspective here, as well as having developed and built all over Costa Rica as well. You know, things are a little bit more difficult and cumbersome down here for anyone that's done it before. And if anybody just wants kind of an unbiased opinion, we're happy to give that. So if you want to get in contact with us, you can. info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. Have a good one, guys, and we'll see you on future episodes.